Hey Chase.
Hey Jeff, good to be with you today. I really enjoy your podcast and have been following it for a while. And I'm always impressed how much and how consistent you are getting, information out there for appraisers. There's not a lot of people doing it, so it's much appreciated.
Oh, appreciate that. So you know the format. What are we winning at?
Yeah,
The valuation space. Are we doing anything right?
well, I think like you've mentioned before, and other people, appraisers can be a bit on the negative side, and I think that's probably because of our personality types. Now, obviously, I can't speak for everybody. Appraisers often are the analytical types who like to, go into a closed room and close the door and get into some numbers and look at stuff from that perspective. And I think that personality type is a little bit more on the negative side, not because they're negative people, but because they like to really think through things. So I think the perspective from appraisers maybe is always sort of negative leaning, but there are a lot of positives in the industry among all the negatives. Some particular things I feel like on the commercial side, more younger people are interested in going down that path. I could be wrong in this, but that's kind of my sense. And that's a topic that I'm kind of interested in is education and how to introduce the appraisal profession to people who might not be familiar with it. There's some other podcasts out there, and I've been on other podcasts where one of the questions is, were you born into this profession, or how did you get into it? And it seems like a lot of people were born into it. I was not born into it. I actually studied real estate at Georgia State University and wanted to go down the analytical path and got particularly interested in senior housing. I was a commercial landscaper while in college and high school too, and I had the opportunity to do commercial landscaping installation project on a portfolio of senior housing, like high-end assisted living, and got to know the owners and thought it was a really interesting niche. And I thought the demographics were really interesting. The way the country is going in terms of amount of people who are retiring and need to go into skilled care type of facilities. And I thought this would be an interesting thing to go into from a work perspective. And so I did my initial training through Appraisal Institute, which was very, very high quality. Though I was a recent college graduate and pretty broke at the time. And I felt like it was really expensive for a new person going into the industry. And I didn't have that appraisal background. I didn't have, my father and mother weren't appraisers. So I kind of had to kind of go out there on my own. And while the Georgia State education was great, they have a great real estate program, there's like a big gap between, okay, here's your degree and, good luck. And also graduated in 2008, which was a wonderful time in commercial real estate, meaning there not a whole lot of jobs. But there wasn't really like any kind of process or help or anything like that from the school side, in terms of helping you find, like there wasn't even like job fairs or anything, or no way to help place you, with a local employer, or kind of put out there like, here's a new batch of graduates, here's a batch of companies looking to hire, looking for internships and stuff. So it was pretty rough. But I was thinking heavily about the appraisal space. So I went and started doing my training, and I was sitting in I think it was a USPAP class, where I met a lady who happened to be in the senior housing appraisal space. And at that same time, I think I was doing a landscaping job in senior housing, or had done one, not long before that. And I was like, oh, okay, and then I shared what I was interested in and was able to find my first job working for an MAI. So that was pretty neat. It was pretty tough to get to that spot. Um, so yeah, yeah. I think something I think about a lot is education, bringing new people into the space, how to connect people who want to become appraisers with people who need to hire appraisers is something. Well, I guess the question was, what are we winning at? I would say we're not winning at that really well. I would say there's interest in that, but I think we could do a better job as an industry bringing new people into, fresh people and fresh perspectives into the appraisal world. As you know, and many know, the demographics skew, quite older, and there's not necessarily anything wrong with that, but it doesn't feel very sustainable. It doesn't feel like a sustainable, flow of new people into the industry. So it's something that I think could be improved.
Okay, and it leads me into, next question is, what are our greatest challenges? You said on your own journey, it was pretty tough for you to get to the point where you're at. So is it, if you want to focus on education and the journey, is it a marketing problem? Is it an education? Is it the content? Is it too long, too hard to get through it? Is it, what's our greatest challenges relative to education and introducing it to new people?
Well, I think it's been a decade since I've gone through any Appraisal Institute courses. I found it quite difficult, and that was with a real estate degree, bachelor's business administration with a real estate focus. And I found the Appraisal Institute coursework to be great. It was really good. I didn't like the format so much, but I think that's probably changed. The format is, you have to go to a particular location, get a hotel if it's out of town, and you're in a room for 8 hours a day, and then you have all your exams on that last day, and it's really, doesn't give you much time to study at your own pace, doesn't give you much time to, really prepare for the test. So that was pretty tough. I think that format's changed. I haven't kept up too much with how they actually do their classes. So, but as for the content, I have nothing negative to say. I thought it's really, really good. I thought it was a little bit expensive if you're a, fresh college student, or a freshly graduated college student. So I think maybe there could be some work done. I think I lost my connection there. Are we still good?
Yeah, you got a little chunky, but you're back.
Oh, okay. I think my these Bluetooth headphones sometimes disconnect. Anyways, yeah. So I think there could be maybe a smoother path on bringing people into the training that's required to go sit and take the appraisal licensing exam. I don't know what the exact answer is for that, and I think some people are making pushes for that. I know there's some different initiatives to help people bring people into the profession, but I mean that's there needs to be more focus there if this profession is gonna have fresh new people coming into it.
Good. So where do we go from here? How do we fix some of the things that we're challenged with? How do we actually fix that education? Is there any other? I always point to accountants, because they're similar-ish in the sense of they're analytical, and I look at their space, and they have really gone broad, and they do things that are in the best interest of their clients. They learn things that are not just accounting and audits, and they go off and they look at how can I help the customer by doing additional things. And not that necessarily want to be a trade, but I do feel like there's a missing, and this is my opinion, almost like college, right? You take 4 years of college and everything is pretty broad, unless you specialize in something. You graduate and you really don't have a skill set. If you go to a plumbing school, electrical school, HVAC school, when you graduate, you can probably fix the AC. So it seems like
That's a great point, Jeff. So yeah, that's another thing. So I have an interesting perspective. So these days I run in a software company that makes products for appraisers, and my degree is in real estate, but I'm essentially a self-taught programmer. And that taught me a lot of things in terms of how to learn, and that it is possible to learn fairly complex topics. Programming is pretty tough. I mean, if you actually get a degree in software development, you can pretty much graduate college. I mean, I'm not saying it's really easy and straightforward, but a fresh computer science graduate can go and get $100,000 job first year out of college. Well, somebody who spent the same amount of money on a real estate degree like mine, how much are you going to make being a trainee appraiser? It's not very appealing to go make $35,000 your first 3 years as an appraiser. So that's a really big problem. I mean, if I was in college now, I probably would not go in the direction of becoming an appraiser because the money's not there for the first 5-6 years versus other similar spaces like accounting that are just as challenging, programming and things like that. So I don't like this whole model where the trainee is treated like a McDonald's employee. And I get it; it's difficult to bring a trainee on. It can be a drag in terms of productivity and that sort of stuff. But I just don't see that as I feel like that probably got established at some point, like, oh, it's okay to pay these trainees, peanuts. The reality is other industries don't. I mean, other industries pay big money, for people who are skilled. But in terms of in terms of education and that sort of stuff, so there was a bit. I've had some kind of not heated. It's all respectful, but I had some interesting discussions on LinkedIn around education requirements, and there were some discussions with the Appraisal Institute pushing for dropping the college requirement for getting, I guess, an MAI, or becoming a commercial appraiser in general. I guess it depends on the state. Um, in my opinion on that, as someone with a college degree that was focused on real estate, very hyper-focused, very useful degree for that, I'm okay with dropping the college requirement because any very self-motivated person can learn anything these days. And I taught myself programming, and I'm no genius. And it's just a matter of finding the educational resources, studying. In this industry, you have to sit and take an exam, so it tests your knowledge. So my opinion is, as long as you have the knowledge in place to pass the exam, then what does it matter if you have a 4-year degree or whatever, or self-taught? So I feel like this 4-year degree requirement, and in these days, like the cost of college is has skyrocketed in comparison to typical inflation rates and costs throughout the rest of the economy. It's just astronomical, to go to school now. And go take out $100,000 so you can make $35,000 a year as a trainee. It's just absurd, when somebody could go right out of college, kind of into a journeyman path, like I think you're talking about, and go under the wing of somebody and learn everything on the job, and then eventually sit for the exam and pass the exam. At least that's my opinion. I think it's definitely doable. But like with programming, I was self-taught. I didn't have a lot of guidance. It probably took me 5 times longer, 6 times longer to learn than if I had gone down a particular, if I would have gone through some, formal courses and that sort of stuff. So I think there's still, there obviously is a big need for formal courses that are approachable and affordable for people who are interested in the profession. So I know some people probably disagree with me a lot about the college profession. People make the argument that, well, this is a professional industry. Without a college degree, it's not very professional. Um, at least, like if you studied, and I'll pick on my wife, she's great and really smart and speaks, 5 different languages fluently, but she was a French literature major. Is that college degree useful for, to become a commercial real estate appraiser? I mean, maybe if you're writing your reports in French, I don't know, maybe you work in Canada. But I just don't see as much value in just any old college degree. So if they really want to enforce the college degree requirement, then they need to do it right. Then it needs to be relevant domains like accounting, economics degree, real estate degree, not just any degree, because all degrees aren't created equal. And there's nothing wrong with those other degrees. They just don't give you the full breadth of knowledge you need to go into appraisal. So my opinion is you either drop the whole requirement, period, or, you know, really be strict about what type of degrees actually count. And I would actually like to, and if they do that, I would like to see more collaboration between the industry and universities. And I think there was a school out of Florida who did that. Do you know what I'm talking about? I don't remember which school. I think it was the University of Florida. I'd have to check. But I'd like to see more direct collaboration with the appraisal industry and schools to prepare appraisers to go into the appraisal industry. I know I'm kind of all over the place with that, but my point is, if they want to make that requirement, they need to do it. They need to hook up with schools and prepare students, for the industry, or trust that the testing works, that the licensing works, and then let people enter at their own pace. Not everyone has the ability to take out $100,000 loan. Not everyone has access to the bank of mom and dad, which is unfortunately what it takes sometimes to go to college now. Some people just don't have that opportunity. Maybe they are from a single parent household and they had to hit the ground and run it, right out of high school, had to work, they had to take a job. Why should we prevent those people from having a chance at the appraisal profession when maybe 5 years down the road they can go take some high quality training classes that aren't college and sit for the exam, find somebody to become a trainee with, and then sit for the exam, pass exam. I don't really see the harm that can be done there. What do you think?
I'm And that kind of was all over the place. And I think it's
Yeah.
education's hard, but what I
Yeah.
hear, what you didn't say, but what I hear, read between the lines, I just look at you. So you chose senior housing, which is not easy. You know, it's probably one of the harder specialties. So I think getting back to the journeyman type of thing, to me, a college degree, not college degree, it's to your point, can you do the work? Right? And a
Right.
lot of people that don't have college degrees that are amazing and vice versa. So to me, it's not so linear, college degree good, college degree bad. I see it
Mm.
more of, if I look at you, you're an amazing example of diversification. So you're an entrepreneur, which I love. You're in software, which I totally love. So, and yet you've got a background you in valuation. So you're doing two very different things. Yes, it's in the industry, but why did you choose to do the software company? Because to me, that attracts a lot bigger group of people if you can take a specialty, which is a very narrow lane, but there's lots to learn, but yet you started a software company.
Mm.
So explain like why you did that. Like what's the mojo there?
Well, if I'm being honest, I think I like the software work in building products more than the appraisal work. I like the appraisal work, but I've always been a nerd at heart. I played with computers since, like I was that first generation when we had all of a sudden had internet in the house. And I might have been like, I don't know, 12 or something. And it was like, I think that's going to go down in history. You have AD, BC and stuff. I think we're going to have like a point that we look back in history, we're like, oh, that's when everybody had internet, and that really changed the world. That opened up, access to information to everybody. Anybody who could afford a connection, and these days anybody can. I mean, even in some, even in really poor places in Africa, they have internet on their phones. Um, but that kind of started when I was around that age, and it was just like, wow. And I didn't really get into programming until later, but I had, was interested in computers and stuff like that. So, it's just something I've always been interested in. And, I had this problem in the company I was working for where we were just, emailing this job log back and forth. And, it had our, all our information about the jobs that were in progress, when inspection's scheduled, when it's due, who's working on it, who the client is and stuff. And we were emailing this Excel sheet back and forth, and it was always out of date. And we still had to pick up the phone and figure out, what the status was and that sort of stuff. And I thought, well, this is wasting my time. I want to be working on reports, and focus on the interesting stuff, not the office work. And so I thought I could probably build something, and that's kind of how that started. And then I realized, okay, well, the other people could use this too. And I also realized I think I like working on the software a little bit more than the appraisal side of things. But I enjoy the appraisal stuff, although I'm a bit rusty these days.
Yeah, no worries. I feel very similar. You know, the entrepreneurial stuff is fun, but I think you can do both. I think the valuation space is missing that value, the entrepreneur excitement, the things you're doing with your product. You're helping the industry, but you're also excited that it gives you that spirit of, okay, what am I going to put in new into the product? What am I going to do about sales and marketing and client success and dev and ops and all the stuff that you do? You do a lot of stuff. It's exciting. How does that get back into the valuation space? And just tell me if this is crazy and I just made this up. If specialty work is the future, and when you go work with somebody, if you don't have a guide or let's call it a template format, do you think it would make sense if new appraisers pick a lane, a specialty lane, and the format dictates what success looks like? Because with all the education through AI, there's all the concepts, but there wasn't the product, right? Here's what a great product, here's a great appraisal. So let's say we're
Mhm.
talking about retail shopping centers. Is there a format out there that you could say, this is an excellent format and follow the format to become a great appraiser? And I'm not
That's
saying,
interesting.
go ahead.
That's like inversing, doing like the inverse of the process. And it's like the kind of the opposite of, um, like first principles, the concept where you go all the way back. That's interesting. I haven't really thought about it like that. Maybe. I do think you need to have those basic, the basic, appraisal valuation concepts and, the, ability to run DCF and all that stuff before you specialize. Um, but maybe you could reverse engineer it that way by kind of looking at, the end product. Because I don't remember really going through, and it's been a while, like I've said, things have probably changed. I haven't done a class for a while. But I think it would have been pretty helpful to start off like, here's a completed appraisal. Then this is considered good quality work, and read through it, and then go through it from there, and then start breaking it down into its components. Is that kind of what you had in mind?
Yeah, because obviously if you're just filling in the blanks, okay, how many parking spaces, what's the parking ratio? Well, if you don't know that a shopping center parking ratio needs to have enough parking for the tenant style, if it's restaurants and bars, they may generate a lot more parking needs. But if they just plug in, oh, I guess parking is important. They may not know what it is, what the parking ratio, why we're doing this. But I think if the format allows them to see the totality of a great, in this case, shopping center appraisal, they can then slowly, to your point, learn the concepts of, oh, I see why the parking ratio is important. I see why this is important. They can then backfill their education with, they may be filling in, the boxes and not quite know what they're doing. But over time, they will learn, oh, that's why we do it. As opposed to what happens now, which is, here's a shopping center appraisal, go. Or here's an old
Yeah,
appraisal, figure it out. That's not very helpful, right? It doesn't
that
look.
can almost lead to a whole nother topic too. Like the residential side of things, they have standards, these standard forms. So our company doesn't make report writing software, but I do talk to appraisals a lot about the various report writing systems, and their opinions are all over the place about like, oh, I don't like this particular brand of report writing software because it really forces you into a particular format. There's not a lot of customization. I'm of the strong opinion that the lenders don't want a bunch of random formats coming through. Your clients don't want, for each of they want something that's very standardized. Um, that they can pick up and immediately understand how to read through the report, where the sections are organized about the same. And that's where the efficiencies come in too. And I get it, you can't really, I guess some appraisers feel like they can't put their special touch. I disagree with that. So I think there is a disagreement with appraisers about like how much control they should have over on what that report looks like. My opinion is, if you want to make more money in any industry, you have to find processes and places for arbitrage. And it's not just the appraisal world, it's any profession. If you want to, the difference between like a craftsman and, maybe that's not the right word. The difference between companies that make a lot of money and that don't, I think, are ones that find processes and find ways to streamline things. And in terms of appraisals, like all this customization stuff, like, maybe have some unique properties, but do you really? I mean, there's the property types are for the most part pretty established. I mean, occasionally we have new stuff come up, like, I don't know about some recent commercial types, but like I heard the term a couple years ago, barn dominium on the residential side. It's ridiculous, but that's a type. So occasionally you have stuff come in like that, but do you really need different formats for every single distribution facility or every single, they're all pretty standardized. And I think one of the problems with this industry is there's not a lot of standardization, both in terms of property types, subtypes, the actual report format, the order of the report, all that stuff. I think that stuff could be improved. Um, and I think if we focused on that kind of stuff, that would help also just in general with the industry.
Cool. Well, Chase, I definitely appreciate your time today.
Yeah, likewise. It was great getting on, and keep doing what you're doing. I think it's a really helpful resource for appraisers. And I know everyone's busy and doesn't have time to put out, most people don't have time, or I think they don't have time to put out podcasts. So I know there's a lot of work involved. So we all do appreciate it.
Yeah, I definitely need to get our voice out there. But thanks for joining me on Indispensable Appraisers podcast. Have a good day, man.
All right. See you, Jeff. Bye.